All right. Are we waiting on Amanda, or she said to go ahead, or?
Who's gonna be here?
Where'd you go?
We can get started. So I'll call the meeting to order at 6:01. Everyone still stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Just want to start the meeting off with saying, fingers crossed, our boys are in the Final Four down in Bedford playing against Kearsarge. They should have been started already, so hopefully through the meeting, we'll have some updates. Okay, first thing we have is non-public and public meeting minutes of February the 8th of 2022.
I'll make a motion, we approve minutes from February 8th, 2022, public and non-public.
I'll second. Thank you, Kevin. Corrections on it?
What I remember happening, so I think that worked.
Okay, seeing none, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And one abstention. There we go. Great. We'll start off with public comment tonight. Hi, Dr. Buffet.
Just a quick invite to join for the whole board and others related to the school. Enfield is having a candidates forum a week from tonight, Tuesday, 7 to 8:30. Specific invite to and try to get out to the school board candidates as well, and budget committee candidates from other towns that will be on our ballot as well, and hope that they can join us, and hope certainly welcome all of you. It will be a hybrid, so it can be zoomed into. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Oh, Dan.
Hi. Just a quick one. When you get to EEAA, policy EEAA, you may want to look at the first paragraph, because it looks to me like there's a bad word there.
I didn't even look
Well, what it says is the superintendent is authorized to allow video and audio recording to extent either required or prohibited by law. I believe it should be permitted by law.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Okay, yep. I'm like, bad word, Dan, you gotta be a little more.
That could be bad.
Yeah, could be bad. Thanks, Dan.
Okay. Yeah, I actually read a policy. I have a lot of spare time.
Yeah, you can give retirement now, yeah.
We could fix that.
All right, we could fix that very easily if you'd like to step up. Okay, all right. Anyone else? Do we have anyone out in Zoom land out there looking to speak? Nope. Okay. All right. Tonight we have a presentation on COVID update. And we'll start off with Amanda.
So this is the second meeting of the month, and as promised, we do have a presentation as far as COVID numbers go, as far as trends are going. I'm sure that most people here have heard that the CDC is probably going to come up with different masking recommendations. They have not yet done so. But I thought it would be prudent for us, and I know Mrs. Gunn is going to pull up my PowerPoint here in a second for me, to go through some of the data. And Rob has helped me put this together, so I'll be turning it over to him. But we'll start with some of the data that looks at our schools specifically, and it looks at some of the surrounding schools too, because I want the board to be aware of the things that are happening. So here's our COVID update. Look at me professional PowerPoint, Google Slides update. So this is a pretty interesting slide. So we had been tracking the data by date of COVID cases per school. So we were able to sort of look at the trend, and you can see that CES, I believe, is in blue, EVS red, IRS yellow, the high school in green, and the SAU office, you only have 2 cases at the SAU office. So they're just very small lines, 2 lines there. You'll see that IRS started off strong. So this is data per day since the start of school. So you'll see that we did have, as expected, a big bump right there, right? IRS started off strong with a lot of cases and then sort of leveled out. The piece that you can't really see is the big spikes towards the end. So this tracks up until last week where, oh yes, Kathleen, you're right, we can see it on this one back here. You can see that, so this tracked up till last week where we started to do the cases by weekly notice. So you can see that big spike. That big spike occurs on the 14th of January, which is about when the entire basketball team that we had really hit COVID nirvana. So you can see that there are a lot of numbers there just before the Martin Luther King Day long weekend. And you'll see that, the high school really spiked there. We were also doing asymptomatic testing of that cohort. So we found cases that would not have been found otherwise. So you can sort of see it's peaked and it's sort of on a downward trend. I can report to you that the total number of cases that we had at the end of the week before vacation was 27, which is a great number compared to 14 alone, I believe is the number recorded there on the 14th for high school. So we're starting to see a relative decline. Vacation, although it was early, February break, we did see a chance for us to let the schools sort of air out, if you will, people to rest, relax, quarantine out. For 2 days in a row, I've had 100% attendance of the adult staff at the Canaan Elementary School. I have 1 case reported to me from the Indian River School this entire week, and that person tested positive over break. So I think we have seen what the rest of the country has seen in that decline, the peak, the sharp peak, and then the decline. Kamala, if you would do the move forward for me. So here are somewhat of local schools, like sort of the, southwestern region are doing. Masks are currently optional at the Jaffrey Ringe SAU. There are 2 districts in the Henniker SAU that are currently masks optional. The other 2 are looking at going masks optional soon. Effective immediately, which was like this week, we had Claremont move that way, as well as Merrimack Valley. Did I move me? Okay. These schools are anticipated to move to mask optional in the next few weeks. It seemed to be that February vacation was sort of the break that most superintendents were talking about in looking at moving to masks optional after February break. And February break ran anywhere from last week to this week to next week. So sort of thinking about March as that turning point in masking. So you had all those schools. And then you have schools that are revisiting their masking plan in March, and that would include Lebanon, the other 2 school districts in the Henniker SAU, Grantham. Lebanon did not really report in. Right now they're masking as planned. I think they probably will, start to really move towards this. Hanover also didn't really have a plan yet. They were doing some work this week to look at what, if any, changes they may be. I will say that in speaking with Corey LeClaire, the superintendent for Plainfield and Cornish, she has permission from her school board. So if the CDC or New Hampshire DHHS decides that schools should be mask optional, she has permission from her board to go ahead and move forward with that as long as they hear something from one of those 2 entities. So go ahead, Kamala. So that's the information surrounding our schools, what we've looked at, what the trend seems to be, and what other local schools are looking at.
So the trend for cases reported in New Hampshire followed pretty much what happened in our district as well. You can see about a month ago in January, there was a spike in cases, and now it's trending downward. And the next slide, you can see the vaccine rates in New Hampshire. Our county is pretty mid-pack as far as vaccination rates. Down south, they're a little bit more high percentage of vaccinations than the North Country. So we're right about in the middle. In the next slide, that's our county trending for cases in Grafton County. And again, you can see that spike that happened about 30 days ago that matches what's happening in our schools and across the state. And then the Grafton County vaccination rates, we have a pretty good vaccination rate as, population-wise, hovering in anywhere from the 90s to the 80s and 70s percentage of people that are fully vaccinated. So I think that falls in line with, the downward trend of cases that we're experiencing now. Hopefully that will continue.
And we do not have what I would consider accurate data to report in the vaccination rates per school. I just don't trust that those would be accurate because that is voluntary information. I just don't trust that, any number that I would report to you would be absolutely accurate. So this is just information for the board to think about. I think there will, schools are seeing increasing pressure to move to, masks optional. There has certainly been some studies done, or I have been told there's some studies done, I have not read them, I'll be honest, saying that N95s are pretty good at protecting the person that's wearing it, not just the people around them. So we have plenty of N95s that we would be able to give to students and staff that would like to do that. I had a very brief conversation with the president of the MVREA to discuss what it would look like if the board decided in the next month or whenever, as guidance changes, that you may choose to go to masks optional. And she thought, just as the public, the public opinion is that it would be very torn, right? Like people would say some people would be for it, some people would be against it, which has been the entire pandemic. I think that's what we've seen for the entire pandemic.
Yeah.
Some people are really for every decision you make, and some people are very much against it. So I just want the board to be armed with this information. I think you've already seen one email from a concerned parent about the wearing of masks. I know my principals are sharing with me other information and other emails that they get. So we are starting to see the public looking for us to move towards, a mask optional option for people. I will say, I believe that the state hospitalization rate is down to 93. The number was down to 93 under 100. And I know other school districts were using that 100 sort of as a bar for hospitalizations due to COVID. So I just want you all to have that information. Think about where, you would like this district to head, knowing, what the numbers look like, knowing that, we are entering warmer, we've made it through the winter, we're entering some warmer times where we would be keeping certainly some of the mitigation strategies that we have in place, 3 feet of distancing, the increased cleaning, the ability to open windows, to have kids go outside. All of those things are going to become options for us in the next few weeks, let's hope, or next month or so. But I just want you all to be aware and to know, where things are headed.
Anyone from the board, Kathleen?
I don't have a problem supporting mask optional if we were to go ahead and vote on it tonight.
Well, I think that, actually, I went on to the Dartmouth website and saw what the epidemiologist had there said, and he basically was saying that this is a 5-week overall sort of trend and that we're not at the end of it. He thinks that we have 2 more weeks in this plateau kind of area. And he felt like any additional at-risk behavior could fuel additional spikes. That was one thing he mentioned, and increase the new risk of a variance popping up. I mean, I think all along we've been doing this, what we've called the Swiss cheese method.
Yep.
With various mitigation strategies layered one upon the other. I feel like, I know this has been tough on the students and tough on the teachers, and I don't know if, I mean, I think my preference would be to look at using different mitigation strategies. I think the masks are one of the strongest pieces of the Swiss cheese, and I don't think it would be prudent to, at this point in the game, to get rid of them. But perhaps letting teachers, arrange the desks the way they want to so they can teach, so I would personally, and I also would like to hear from the principals and what they think. They could, if we need to loosen up the string, so to speak, or remove some of the cheese, that it would be prudent to, look at what would help the kids and, maybe not having to take their backpacks around, being able to use lockers or things that kind of can increase normalcy, but keeping, I still believe this is one of our strongest strategies. And I don't, listening to the doctor at Dartmouth, I don't think we should do it right now. I mean, I think we're absolutely heading in that direction and everybody wants that. So, yeah, that would be my recommendation, would be just to see if there are other things that can make the schools seem more normal, and help with, we want to keep the kids in school, that's the main goal, and get them so that they're getting the best education during this, so. That's my 2 cents.
Yeah, I would agree with Hope. I think it's too soon to take masks off the thing, like to remove that layer of Swiss cheese. I think we're so close, and I know that's the people have heard that long for 2 years, but all indications are looking in that direction. And I think once we're able to open windows on a daily basis, I think that's my comfort level, because then I feel better about having, whatever masks, people want to use, but the mitigation factor, that really increases the airflow through a room, and that really would, kind of make up the difference. So, I mean, that's kind of where I'm at right now. And yeah, CDC hasn't changed their guidance. They're expected to sometime, but we're still in high transmission. And like, we got very close last summer, and then, other places started pulling back their mitigation factors too soon, and it just spiked again. So I think it's like, we're almost there.
Anyone else from the room? Dr. Buffet?
Thank you. I agree that, like many of the other public health officials locally and around the nation, that it would be premature to relax too much by taking masks at this point. Although the CDC is reconsidering their recommendations, and my understanding is that they're not planning to, anything I've heard of, planning to recommend stopping the recommendation for masks in schools. And the American Academy of Pediatrics is still strongly in favor of masks in schools. Locally, there were 19 active cases in our district today, and our vaccination rate in district communities for full vaccination is only 46 to 66%. So vaccination, ventilation, masks, rest we can ease up on. I don't think they're going to cause harm. It's going to need to be reevaluated fairly frequently, maybe monthly, after school vacation in April. I don't know what the time frame is, but don't do it yet, please.
Yeah, that was my concern, that if we took them off now, still a chance of a good blast of wind to come at us and no windows, and so I myself was looking into April, but that's just the way. And on the other hand, you also have to remember, the feds will not take them off the school buses, so they're still gonna have to wear a mask during the day if they ride buses, and I'm afraid once it becomes optional here, the pushback on those buses is gonna be, but now back to square one when we first started to have to wear them. So it's gonna be, it's gonna be a tough decision all the way around, and another learning curve that everyone's gonna have to go through, with no question, but, I'm just not ready to do the optional piece just yet, so. I know we've got a big month coming up next month with the election and all of that, reorganizing and things, so.
So I will just caution the board that this may be one of the only schools that is masked when this is all said and done. And that will cause some extra work for my administrators because kids are going to be very, very upset. So I just will caution that. I would like to ask that we do revisit it at the end of March. I just do think that at some point, it is a lot of work on my administrators, and I know you're all worried about the people, but at this point, 35% of the kids and staff at the Indian River School have had COVID, right, have reported having COVID, and that's one of our larger ones. I would imagine that the high school would not be far behind that. So at some point, we're building some immunity, and I know that it's a touchy subject. I'm not sure what other mitigation strategies I'm comfortable letting go of. I think the 3 feet of distance not only protects us from, COVID, but from some other, strep throat, colds, et cetera. Teachers pretty much have become accustomed to teaching in those situations, so they've kind of taken care of that. So I would like to ask that we do revisit it in March, even though March is a heavy month.
Most definitely, yeah, I would have to agree. Second meeting, the last meeting in March would be.
I would expect there'd be some public members here. I think there will be some members of the public to speak.
That would be the end of that 5-week period that they were talking about. And by then, it will be very obvious as to what everything, whether there's another something coming behind it or,
There's always, I hope there's always something coming behind it. I feel like it's always another one.
True. Okay, so we're okay with that from the revisit the second meeting in March. All right, anything else from the public before we move on? Anything up there, Kim? Nope. Okay, appreciate it. Thank you, Amanda. Continuing business, communications committee report.
Is it in the minutes in here?
I don't think it was.
See, I only have quarterly reports.
Let's table that till next time then.
Okay.
That way Danielle can share.
And Amanda, do we have a report from you?
You have my report orally this evening because it's not in the packet yet. There were extra copies made.
Oh, okay.
Apparently,
Can I not pass them?
Oh, you're writing a novel.
wait, Rob thinks he has them.
I have one. That's mine.
Well, it's a very interesting report. I'll go ahead and just give it to you orally. It's excellent. We'll drop it. I think it's dropped into the electronic version at this
Wasn't
point.
earlier today.
It was
maybe.
not earlier. It was last minute.
Okay, then no.
So you do get to hear my report orally today. And I talked about in it some of the great things, the professional development that some of our people did over vacation. And by people, I mean especially our SAU staff. So both Rob and Angel were able to attend a national conference on grants and the administration of grants. Very valuable. I think Rob will probably talk a little bit about it in his report. But just a very valuable experience, learning the things that we're doing right, learning things that we could be doing better, and presented by the federal departments that oversee them. So I think that was very valuable. Chris Biso did spend a week learning about, he was at the school psychologists conference. So that really focused on social emotional wellness for our students. And he came back with some wonderful things that he's really excited to share with the district and some things for us to implement as we move forward with mental wellness for our students and staff. I got to spend a lovely day in Concord, New Hampshire as part of the Alternative 2 Oral Review Board. So they get 3 certified educators in the state of New Hampshire, and people who are seeking a certification and don't want to do the typical Alt 4, which is basically a 3-year process. You take the praxis, you do the coursework, you demonstrate the competencies. Alt 2 was you get to create a portfolio, and then you come in and you're basically interviewed by the panel. And so I was part of the panel that interviewed a candidate, and it was just a really wonderful process. The candidate had done a wonderful job. She was very skilled. She had really put a lot of time and effort into it. I felt that it was a more inclusive experience than just taking courses, which is what we often do to get people certified here that come to us that are uncertified. So it's just a very genuine, excellent experience, I think, for the candidate, a lot of hands-on real-world experience. But that was my professional development, and I did enjoy it it was good. It wasn't as great as the other conferences, but it was still a good professional development experience. So, yeah.
Any questions for Amanda?
Is that something that you think we could like steer people if we're looking for staff?
Yes.
Maybe instead of the Alt 4, more go towards an Alt 2? because
I have
we get-
already said that
Nice.
Alt 4 fits some of we have some experienced teachers
Yeah,
who are looking at, like the Alt 4 process is not necessarily for them. They want a different position within the district,
Mhm.
and it needs a new certification.
Mhm.
But the Alt 4 process and getting another degree,
Mm.
getting another master's degree is not where these people want to head.
Yeah.
So I've already steered them towards like looking at this Alt 2 portfolio experience. It was really good. Yeah, I think it was very beneficial, multiple ways.
Good, good.
Good. Anything else for Amanda? Perfect, thank you. And Rob, we don't have yours either.
No, I did not write a report, so mine is gonna be oral as well. As Amanda said, I was at a conference last week with Angel, a national conference on federal funding and grant management. Very informative. It was really refreshing to know where we are as a district compared to everybody else in the country. There was a lot of sessions on compliance and auditing and appropriate use of funds and accountability, data collection. There's things surrounded by how we are using still 2019 and 20 free and reduced lunch numbers. So when do we get back to using accurate data from the previous year? Just so much information on how these grants should be managed, and some of the pitfalls that schools around the country are facing. Some schools are huge with 100,000 students, and they have the same questions that we do. So and there was also a lot of information of things that we're doing right. Our use of ESSER funds for PPE and construction projects, things that we're on track with that other people are doing as well. So it was very informative. It was very very bolstering to know that we're all in this together in a lot of ways with a lot of other educators around the country. Very informative, very entertaining, and it was a good time.
Thanks.
I will have a written report next time. I promise.
I had a quick question for Rob. So with grants, is that something you see where we could look into having like a grant writer for hire or contract with somebody to write grants or help us with grants? Just because, I understand, grants, there's a lot of free money but there's a lot of strings attached. You got to make sure you're crossing all your T's and your follow through is all correct. But, when you write a grant, you get a grant writing fee and that sort of thing. Is that something that we could look at to bring money into the district, and kind of compensate for that? That person makes up for the money that they cost, you know what I mean?
Exactly. There is a certain amount of indirect costs that are available from the grants, and now that the ESSER grants are really large, that indirect cost is actually very sizable. So Angel and I have sort of floated the idea of maybe that could form a part-time position or a full-time position for someone who could just administer grants and then take some of the weight off of that. So that's in the pipeline.
Very good to know, thank you. Anything else for Rob? Okay. Moving on to public comment response update. I think we're all set there, Amanda.
All set?
Quarterly reports. They're in your packet. Does anyone have any specific questions? We do have some administrators with us tonight. If you want to start in the order that they're in your packet, we'll start with Angel. Good evening, Angel.
Hi, everybody.
Hi. Thank you for that link for the interactive newsletter of yours.
Mhm.
Oh, you're
So-
welcome. I figured it probably is better for me to send you guys the link versus you have the paper copy also and it's in the folder, but I've been really trying to include videos and things like that. That way you guys can actually access the videos.
No, they're very, 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 I love them. They're just absolutely fabulous. Thank you. So I'm
Good.
excited. I have something to watch tomorrow while waiting for my kids to get out of the books club.
Awesome, awesome. And I do send it out to teachers on the 1st of the month, so you guys get a little preview.
Nice.
So for my quarterly report, some things to highlight. Curriculum review cycle. We do have our Mascoma curriculum group up and running. We've had our first meeting where we came up with an action plan and really mapped out what we're going to do this spring and summer to review the math curriculum. The first thing that we're doing actually tomorrow is reviewing math data. So we're looking at the past 4 years of data and starting to look for some trends and coming up with some information so that we can make some determinations about our curriculum, our programming, our textbooks. So really digging into the data is the first part of that. The next thing I wanted to highlight was the January early release day. We also did some curriculum work there. So teachers have started developing scope and sequence documents, which I will share with you when we have a more complete draft. But this is a way for us to get a good idea of where we are at with curriculum. And then the elementary schools actually dug a little bit deeper into math. And so I've been using that to look at the essential skills for math in the curriculum meetings this month. And then we also had a presentation on executive functioning skills, which a number of educators, special education and school guidance counselors were able to attend. They found that very helpful. Just a quick update on grants. We continue to work on them. Rob and I have really partnered because the grants, there are quite a few years open in some places. So there's lots to sift through. And so we've been working on that together, partnering. We meet once a week and go through the grants. Program of Studies review was completed at the high school. They did a great job with that and have started to add some new classes and look at their scope and sequence for classes. And we had some great conversations about changes that they're making, semesterizing classes, making electives more accessible to students. So that was awesome work that they did. I wanted to highlight the app vetting committee, which is a group of many of our school library media specialists who work to go through and vet all the applications that are put through the process. So we meet once a month and look at those applications and get some feedback about how we're using them in the schools. And then they move on and they're part of that review to look at student data and things like that. So that's part of the governance. Handwriting, typing, and cursive. We have received these materials. Teachers have had some training and we're moving forward with that and kind of mapping out how we're going to use those Learning Without Tears materials. Frontline professional growth. We continue to work on that system. Kamala has been very helpful as we sift through things and get everything up and running. You might be sick of getting my emails, but we're really working through getting everything updated, including all the historical hours for teachers. And then just the last thing to mention is that the middle school, the high school, and CES all received robotics grants for after-school clubs. And so we are in the process of getting those clubs up and running and purchasing materials. It's been slowed down a little bit, I guess, by the pandemic because they're out of some of the supplies that we need. But we're working on ordering those and we're going to get some more training for those coaches. That's all I have for you. Any questions for me?
Do you have a question? So I guess my one question for me is EVS, did they not apply for that grant?
They decided not to apply because they had a number of things kind of up and running already, initiatives that they're working on. But it is typically open every winter, and so they could apply next year.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Fine.
I have a sport update. It's 28-21 Kearsarge at the half.
Yep.
So,
Oh,
plenty of basketball.
Plenty of
As,
basketball.
Rodney says plenty of
Okay,
basketball left
send
to
some vibes down, send some vibes on the bench. Thank you, Angel, so much for
Thank
all the
you.
cranked up game tonight. Alrighty, who else do we have? We have Chris Beeso. Is Chris with us? Oh, yes.
I am. How you doing?
Chris.
Good evening, everybody. Little dark. I'm sitting in the car. Let's go over a few things. I didn't have a written report based on the conference I was at last week. I'm still debriefing with Dr. Brightman, who is our one of our school psychologists, and her and I are debriefing around some of the things from last week. And once we're through that process, I'll have some further recommendations for Amanda and everybody as we go forward. But it was a very engaging week with, it was just so good to be back amongst colleagues from across the country. That was the biggest thing, was being able to network with people from across the country who are experiencing the same thing. So if we think that we're unique to how we're feeling here in, in Canaan or in Enfield, they're feeling the same way about things in Des Moines or in Amarillo, Texas. It is very much a theme across the country. So let me get through some of this other stuff, and I'll get back and sort of tie up the conference toward the end of this. So a couple of things that we've been working on. We did roll out a full electronic signature platform. One of the things that we have had our feet held to the fire on from the DOE is around signatures. So as we've moved into this pandemic, it's been very, very difficult to get parents to sign IEPs, evaluation plans, val sums, 504 plans, whatever it is that we need to have signatures on. We're still have been required to get those signatures, and it's not okay to just send an email and say, you have my consent. So we've had to, roll out an electronic signature platform. We have this really controlled to 12 people within the school district, and it's doing quite well at this point. So we're pretty happy that we're able to, send documents out electronically and get signatures back from family, and feedback's been really great on it. I did want to give you an update on, we're in the second year of an implementation called Gold Book. And this is a standing bullet on my report every quarter. We did have a mid-January check-in with the folks from Gold Book, and they were able to provide us with some data usage. And as I had been concerned about how many folks were actually using this program, which really ultimately justifies the purchase for this. And I'm happy to report that usage across the district for using this really valuable tool is up across the board. So things are going really, really well with that implementation. Other things, all my special educators have access to an online platform for professional development. It's called NHASET. It's the National Association of Special Education Teachers. It is just chock full of all sorts of resources, from PowerPoints to videos, lectures, all sorts of stuff on every imaginable subject that's available. So if any of our teachers are feeling like they can't get out because of the pandemic, or they can't get access to content for professional development, all they need to do is go to this professional website, and they have access to absolutely everything. We continue to do training for our 504 managers on the electronic capture of all of the information needed to generate electronic 504 plans. Our CPI training continues. We did a big round of it in the late summer, early fall, and we're doing another round. We've had a couple of cancellations. We have another one that is scheduled for this Friday, and it looks like we could potentially be snowed out of that one, so we'll have to reschedule that one. But that's an ongoing training that we're always looking to train our paras and other folks on verbal and physical de-escalation techniques for our kids. Angel touched on our January PD day for executive functioning. It was a hit, and Dr. Peg Dawson spent a few hours with us, and the feedback was fantastic. And we are certainly moving forward with to schedule more professional development with Peg in the future. Let's get to the challenges. Now, the challenges that I want to talk about are, as I talked about, the things at the conference I was at last week. These are the same challenges that are being felt by several school districts from across the country. Referrals are up. Social emotional deficits in our kids across the board, from pre-K to elementary, middle school, and high school, are a significant issue across, not just here in New Hampshire, but across the country. Access to available real mental health interventions and supports is not just a crisis here in New Hampshire, but it is a crisis across the country. And I know that there are several bills legislatively here in New Hampshire that are actively trying to address this in particular. But it was sobering. It was absolutely sobering to see some data, national data from across the country that is, we have a portion of our kids across the country who are really, really struggling coming out of this pandemic. Staffing shortages are a real thing, not just for education, but we know across all industries across our country. In particular, education has been hit hard. We're already recruiting for next year. You can go on to like edjobs.com. You can go on to School Spring. It is a very, very active season right now. And we have had postings out for a little over a week, and we have had no viable bites. And again, this is something that we're going to continue to actively recruit, but this is something that is also happening across the country. There is a massive shortage for teachers, for special educators, for related services people. School psychologists are in dire need across the country. Boston Public Schools right now is in the process of trying to hire 26 new school psychologists to meet the level that NASP, the National Association of School Psychologists, has set, which would be one school psychologist for every 500 kiddos. And so there is a massive national shortage of school psychologists that are happening across the country. But again, the nice thing, yes, we have these challenges, but when I look at the job that we do here in Mascoma, for all of the struggles that we have on a daily basis, our special educators and related services people, they bring it every single day, and they do their best to meet the needs for all of our kids. They do a really fantastic job. And to wrap it up, no changes in this quarter for any out of district placements. We didn't have any changes in that. So it's good to talk to everybody. Any questions?
No, that's not, Chris. Thank you very much. Very thorough. Thank you very much for all your input. And I'm glad you enjoyed your conference, and hopefully we'll have a good spring coming up, right?
That's right. Thanks,
That's
everybody.
right. Thank you. Mr. Suddy, you are up, Mr. Technology.
Yeah, well, I have no challenges as far as suppression type stuff. But I do want to look at, you have my report there, and the most important sentence, probably the whole thing, is that first one, that event streaming is no longer unexpected, it's a norm. It's what we do here. And we do more than just streaming too. It's kind of got to be known that we do production. We're working on documentaries. We do on-the-spot newscasting last week or the week before break. We ran out and videoed the derby, the cardboard derby sled race, me, Kamler, and a student. And we rushed back with that. We had the kids get together. Seth has added a day to the AV club. And it's really taken off to be really integral into this community, I think. And when we look at it, it really is a service. I mean, we're having a hard time tonight, just because I'm trying to find a way to watch a basketball game. That would not even be an issue here, and it'd be well done. It'd be perfectly done. And on a different note, but on the same lines, and I think maybe we'll present some stuff maybe at a meeting too later, is that some of this streaming, video conferencing, broadcasting, production stuff really isn't just local anymore. We're international. We've got data that shows viewership all over the world. And so we've kind of gone from this little local thing to get an AV club here. I need to mention that, and I told this to Amanda probably while we were buying the AV equipment. I said, yeah, you realize you could probably sit from your bed or your couch and stream a basketball game. Well, lo and behold, it happened. Seth was under the weather, ran it from his house. The January 31st game, that was literally streamed from his couch. He brought the basketball game to the public and community at large, a basketball game from a couch in our house. So that's kind of a testament to the growth in really less than a year. And even to shed a little light on our communications meeting, we talked about, maybe some of the growth going forward too with this AV stuff is blending some media arts. Maybe we talked about a red carpet movie night.
Oh,
maybe,
yeah, like a film festival.
Yeah,
or
maybe a
something
film
like that,
festival someday, or mixing some of the student work throughout the year in with the art shows that occur. So more to come with that stuff as well. So that's pretty exciting stuff. And Seth owes a great thanks for all that too as well. He's done a great job. When I kind of wrote this too, I kind of looked at, the approval of our esports, and then I kind of got to thinking about, when I first started here, I was like, well, what do we do for STEM here? What do we do for some greater technology than just what's in the classroom? And I looked around, and there's a lot going on right now as it relates to programming, gaming. There is a first league. There are some Lego stuff that are going on. I just put together at the middle school last week during break Minecraft for education stuff, so they'll be able to start programming and learning how to do some of that stuff up there, as well as their Lego club that they have after school. We've given them some devices and load some software for that. As well as extra stuff we got going downstairs with Seth. So, when we kind of look at that, we're kind of getting into this greater kind of technology reach. And I know there's even teachers here that want to do some Lego stuff as well, and the first leagues probably more towards the end of the year, if not more next year. But that's really cool stuff. And kind of last, I just focus on the Emergency Connectivity Fund, which is that fund that's your people who want some discounts on their internet services in their homes. I'll end on a little bit of a sober notice with that. The good news is that, as you can see, millions of dollars have been requested to offset. The state with the greatest request is Kentucky. The state with the least is New Hampshire, which when you look at least this area, microcosm, the need's great. And that's why I put that on here. We put it on our website. It's been on there at least 3 months now too. We've updated it. We keep it updating, just to get the word out to people who want internet, costs offset. There's help out there. So, thanks.
Any questions for Craig?
Craig, I have one question. Do we have any data on connectivity issues, like who we know, based on the remote learning, how many people need help?
Yes and no.
Okay.
Like a lot of things, when we do surveys, and we did surveys at the beginning of the whole COVID thing, we sent out mass surveys, and we got a lot of data from that. We have data from our MiFi, or, mobile Wi-Fi device loans that we do. And that's probably the best that we have. It's not that bad. It gives us a pretty good snapshot of what people have. And, off the top of my head, I can't really say, but, there is a need for support for greater accessibility. We are a rural area that does make it hard. MiFi device, not silver bullets. If you're out in East Dorchester or some of those woodsy mountainous type places. I think we've met the need pretty good. Next week, well, it's supposed to be this week, but next week, we're going to install the wireless for outdoors. So that'll start promoting greater access. And it's kind of, more in the past people were doing it, but we will be broadcasting wireless access, at least through the parking lots now. So if people do need to come in and jump on and get some connectivity, that'll be offered. So those will be installed next week as well, and that's due based on the ESSER grant stuff from last year. So.
Nice. Anyone else? So Craig, America's Got Talent Extreme, did you happen to see that last night?
No.
And Pamela, this is also for you. So, my husband was channel surfing, I made him stop. There's 4 gentlemen, 4 engineers that got together, and they had 150 plus drones, and they were all lit up, and they did a spectacular drone show with lights and everything else. It was absolutely amazing. So you might be able to look it up, but I was like, oh, look at Pamela, she's got this all under control.
And that, well, I don't know about the show, I'm gonna have to go look, but we will this summer, spring, get the drones fired up for the kids outside.
Yeah.
Last year, because it was so new and I was really worried about some safety stuff, but I kind of figured out how we could do it. We're using the dugouts and the fence as a barrier so that the kids could work. Because last year, I was like, well, we're gonna do this, we can't have this thing flying, uncontrollably, especially when you're learning. And so I figured that'd be a safe way to do it. So spring we'll start that as well.
But if you get a chance to watch that clip, America's Got Talent Extreme, it aired last night. So, and he was channel surfing, I said, stop, there's a drone, oh, lots of drones.
How many did you say?
It was 150 plus. It was quite impressive.
Yeah.
So I was just thinking of you and how Pamela is all hyped up into this drone, and I can just see.
We can get Craig in a costume, sign me up.
Pretty soon you can do a fly through. You can just fly right through the whole school. It'll be good enough.
We've got to do because the winter's been a little rough and a little cold. One of our drone photographers during the sled thing got to the record button on. It was okay though. It was okay. Pamela,
I pushed it several times.
We're learning still. We're in a little curve.
Yeah.
So,
Well, that's fabulous, but
yeah,
a little bit.
that info now.
You're welcome. All right, so now we have Leah, a report for Canaan Elementary, please. Hi, Leah.
Hello. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes.
And then, so Kamala, did you give me sharing rights so I can pull up my report?
Should be able to right now.
Okay. I just think it'll be a little easier to talk off of it if we have it open.
Is it cooperating?
I'll tell you in a second. You tell me, is it cooperating?
Beautiful.
Beautiful. Okay. So I'm gonna just walk to the report that is in your packet. I noticed that I wrote it when I was on February vacation, and I must have been feeling very relaxed because I mentioned how calm and positive everything was. It may be the case these last few days with the entire staff actually in the building, but yeah, I have to say it's been sort of, I did have a moment to sort of reflect, I think, over February vacation on how amazing it has been that we've kept the building open, and with all the staffing challenges, it's really been okay. And we have managed it with, even with the low, with the few subs that we've had. Enrollment basically has stayed constant, so no news there. And then I thought what I would do, and you'll have to tell me whether or not you can see it well enough on the TV screen, is I think, first of all, instead of going to the data, I'm going to finish the other parts of the report first, and then I'm going to double back on the academic growth data that we've been looking at. So I'm going to skip through what's on your first page here with all the colored charts, and we'll go back to the data at the end of it, just because I think it's going to be a little bit more confusing than the rest of the report. So a couple things that we put in place this quarter, which are new and have been really just a lot of fun and very, I think the kids have really enjoyed it. We have started a Read With Me Pet Partners program. So Amy Ryder, who's the school counselor, and Crystal Darling, who does tech and library for us, managed all the logistics to have Keikos, who is the black lab in that corner of the report there, come into school. He's been in a couple times already, and students, Amy Ryder had sort of prioritized our students who we thought could use the extra sort of love of a therapy dog. And she arranged all the lists and got all the parent permissions and have had the students come in. And they take their reading amazingly seriously, even though they are reading to the dog. It is absolutely fascinating. So you can see the picture of the little girl. She's literally pointing to each word as she goes, like clearly her teacher has done for her. And it is fascinating. Even one of the kids at one point turned and said the dog was not paying enough attention, which was sort of amusing because, of course, he spends most of his time sleeping. But so that's been really a wonderful thing. And so the staff decided at the last faculty meeting that they want to roll it out to all the students, not just sort of our higher needs students. So that will be the next phase for that project. The second thing that has started happening in this past quarter is that we have opened what we're calling the Loud Librarian Bookstore. So we've received some funds in honor of Stephanie Nelson, who was our librarian for many years at CES, and we've purchased a bunch of new books with this money and created it's like a student bookstore, and the kids come in class and grade at a time, and you can see the picture of them there with their new books. And Helen Benham, who's a retired teacher, has returned to help us run the Loud Librarian Bookstore, and the kids come in and they get to pick a new book to bring home with them. And it's been really, it's always sort of joyful to see books go to kids' hands, but this one's been particularly sweet for lots of reasons. So, all right, I'm just gonna scroll down. Challenges being addressed is one of the areas that's always on my quarterly report. And there's usually something there, but I have to say, I think we thought our biggest challenge this year, sort of outside of COVID, would be having integrating the ARC program into the building. But I have to say, it's been lovely. I think everyone would say it's been a net plus just to see some of the wonderful staff that's come across. It's really nice to have the students that are from our part of the district back in our school, in some cases with their siblings. And it's really just been very sweet to see the teachers have stepped up. Everyone's figured out how to make it work. And it's, I don't know, it feels really nice. The data on all the inclusion time looks great. They've been spending all the kids have been spending a lot of time in their classrooms, and we really haven't hit any hiccups with that. So that's been lovely. Despite some of the restrictions with COVID, we have had some community interactions. So we have had our Dartmouth College athletes still coming in for one PE class because we don't want them crossing between classes, but they do come in for one at least. VINs will be helping out with some science lessons, and we've had people from DHMC come in preschool who are learning to be pediatricians. And of course, we've had actually more than just Helen, we've had a couple other retired teachers come in and do some things to help us out in the library. We've finished our COVID vaccination clinic and a follow-up dental clinic. And we also did a real push for the staff to do a food drive for Friends of Mascoma, which was fun. And we delivered over 100 pounds of food. So Amy Ryder ran that one. And then before I bounce back to the data, I just wanted I put in here that I'd like to publicly thank the staff because they've just continued to be flexible and very kind in the face of everything that kind of gets continually thrown at them. It has really been amazing to see and to watch Tammy Daly, who has to pull together the schedule most mornings when staff go out for various COVID related reasons. So as Amanda mentioned in passing, the last 2 days we've had our entire staff here, and it's just been the calmest of mornings. So that's been lovely. And then I was looking at the data that I included, And the what I had mentioned in the report is with Crystal Smith, who's the RTI coordinator. She's been helping us gather and pull together some data to take a look at growth data for literacy and math across grades and across teachers and across students, so we can see what's happening with some of our interventions. And I included a lot of the data in the colored graphs, but I began to look at it and wondered if it might be easier and simpler to start with just different growth charts. So I'm going to scroll down, and I guess you're just going to have to tell me if they're big enough that you can see them. So I don't know if the TV is big enough. If not, I'll go back to the ones you have in front of you. But can you guys see this area here that has a K under math?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So I think these are just a little simpler. I'll go back and explain the ones that have all the colors, but there's just a lot of information in there to pull out. And I thought these would be sort of a better place to start looking at the data. So what you'll see here is this is just math, and I've cut it by grade. So what we're looking at is the solid line is CES. So this is the average score in the fall for the kindergartners in math. And then we just completed a couple weeks ago our winter benchmark as well. The dotted line is the average score for the nation for kindergartners in math in the fall and in the winter. So ideally, what I'm looking for here when I go digging through the data is I would like to see, of course, that in our school, this line is growing. In other words, the slope is higher for this line than this line, because I want to see that our kids are learning between fall and winter. Their growth is higher than the growth on the dotted line. So the bad news is that our kids are starting below the national average when they entered in the fall. But you can see that in math, they're catching up in kindergarten pretty quickly, and this is only halfway through the year. So if the trend continues, we should be in pretty good shape by the end of the year. Same thing in first grade. They're starting behind the national average, but they're catching up quite quickly in math. In second grade, they're started almost exactly at the average of all second graders in the nation, and they continue to grow quicker because, again, you can see the slope of the line is much greater. I'm going to scroll down. Third grade, same story. The growth is extremely high compared to your average national growth in third grade, and the same is true in fourth grade. And you'll notice in fourth grade, by the time they're in fourth grade, they actually are starting above the national average in math, and even continue to grow faster than that. So just before I roll to literacy, I don't know if I explained this well enough. Are there any questions on sort of what we're looking at here? We're all good? All right, so I would say, looking at this, for me as a principal, looking at this data, and of course all my math, my math and stats background is coming out because I love data. Like, the math looks phenomenal. At every grade, when I look at it, the growth is greater than what happens in the nation. The kids are catching up. If they're behind, if they're ahead, they're still continuing to grow more. Literacy is a little bit of, it's a little more complicated. So I'm going to scroll up and we're going to look at the same graphs for literacy. And you'll notice if we start, fourth grade looks quite like math. They're starting above the national average and they're growing a ton. Third grade looks kind of like math. They're starting a little bit behind the national average and they're still growing more than they grow across most of the nation. Second grade, literacy and math sort of looks the same. But in kindergarten and first grade, we have this sort of puzzle going on that I spent a little time trying to figure out. So in kindergarten and first grade, they are starting behind and staying behind. They're growing, but they're growing at about the national average. You can see, like, if you look here, the slopes of the lines, they're almost parallel. And the same is true here, which is not what I want to see. Of course, we want to see these solid lines going up a lot more. All right, so with that in mind, I'm going to go back to the part of the report that you have in your packet, because there's just so much information here, and I don't want to, I don't want to spend, I know you guys are really, you have a lot going on. So I'm going to kind of do this at a high level, and then if you have any questions, you can ask me. So let's talk about literacy here for a minute. So what I did is I pulled the fall benchmarks for kindergarten, first, second, third, fourth, and then all of our kids combined. And if you just glance at it, the thing we do not want a lot of orange and yellow. Orange and yellow together represent the kids that are scoring in the bottom 25th percentile of all the kids nationally. So in the fall, at the beginning of the year, if we look here at all of our kids, half of our kids are in the bottom 25th percentile in literacy. This is the first grade that did it, and you can imagine how distraught we all were when we saw this data. In first grade, 90% of our kids scored in the bottom 25th percentile for literacy. Again, this is on one test, Ames Web, but it does seem to be fairly consistent with our other benchmark tests we use. I felt a little better when second grade data came in, because you can see their percentage here of 90% in the bottom 25%. By the time you get to second grade, it's a lot smaller. Third grade's even a little bit smaller. And fourth grade, it's tiny. By the time we get to fourth grade, we have only about 15% of our kids in the bottom 25th percentile. So we're doing much better than the average by the time they get to fourth grade. So my happy take on this is that the longer they're in school with us, year after year after year, the better they're doing. If I compare this top one to the bottom one, which is the same data, but for the winter, the other thing that's quite nice is I would like to see these orange and yellow bands shrinking in every grade. So the orange and yellow was 90% in first grade. By the time we get to winter, it's dropped down to about 70. And this one's lower, and this one's lower, and this one's lower. And instead of having 50% of our kids in the bottom quartile, like we did in the fall, by the time they've been in school for half of a year, about 10% of them have now done much better than the bottom 25th percentile. We're down to about 35% to 40% of the kids now are down here. And if that trend continues, that's great, because we'd lop off another 10% and we'd be back to about the average. So I'm not going to spend much more time on the data, but there is one thing that you may have noticed, which I did dig into a little bit, which was puzzling to us, is that when we looked at kindergarten's literacy, all the other grades, if you compare their bar up here to their bar down here, they look like things are moving the right direction and it looks really promising. But in kindergarten, literacy doesn't look that different. In the fall, I've got about 60% here in these bottom two bars, the ones I don't like to see. And here I've still got about 60%. And you saw it down below when we looked at the literacy data as well for kindergarten. And what I've discovered is that there is one task, one skill that they're testing the kids on that has to do with, can they identify the sounds that letters make? And this task that they had to do in the winter to score, turns out that all of the letters are in lowercase. And what we think we've discovered is that our kids are not learning lowercase letters that early in the year. We tend to start, we do a lot of the handwriting and other things, and we start with just the uppercase letters. So we're keeping an eye on it. We created a test to see if that was the issue in all uppercase, and the kids did really, really well with the task. A lot of them moving from about 20% to 50% on the task just by changing them from lowercase to uppercase to lowercase letters, or vice versa. So I think that that's all it is. And as long as it's just a timing issue and the kids learn the lowercase letter sounds as well by the end of the year, I'm not too nervous. But if they don't, I think we're going to have to spend a little time revisiting when we teach upper versus lowercase. But the jury's still out. I think we'll know more as we continue to progress monitor. And I'm not going to walk through the math data, because you can see it all is looking, heads the right direction. The numbers look good. And it's pretty easy now that I've walked you through, I hope, the literacy side. So I think I'll stop there. And if anyone has any questions, feel free to ask.
Do you have any questions?
Awesome use of data. Thank you, Leah. That was really cool.
Yeah.
I have a couple questions, Leah. Is there any data for the pre-K kids coming into kindergarten in terms of where they're coming in at, how helpful that is? And then also how the upper kids fare in this data set? You know, kids that are coming in at a higher literacy rate.
Yeah, so kind of two questions there. One is about preschool. So at the moment, I don't have a lot of tangible preschool data. We did start to use more of a skill-based report card just in this last go round at the end of Q2 that has a lot of skills. And my hope is that by putting that in place, we can look at that data over time and see if they're picking up the skills that they have. But we don't have any data like this at preschool at this point. And then when you'd asked about at the upper level, do you mean beyond fourth grade?
No, I mean, it looks like this is the literacy rates are like 1 through 10, and then there's 90 through, and so there's different cohorts of literacy rates through the data. So the higher literacy rate kids
Oh,
how
so yes, so
fair.
if you look at the report and you look at those colored bars in front of you and you pick a grade, let's just say 4th grade, those bottom 2 bars are the ones that are the bottom 10% and then 10 to 25, but anything that's in green or those 2 colors of blue, those are the kids that are in average and above average, proficient and above proficient. So it's all in there. That's what those other colors are.
Right, and I guess my question was, is there growth in those cohorts too?
Oh, yeah. So in the, that's a very good question, because that's one of the things that, you worry about as a teacher is that, what if you're spending all of your time worrying about whether you can grow the kids who are below grade level? But yeah, we have pulled the data by all and looked at it regardless of where the kids are in terms of skill, from below grade level, on grade level, or above grade level. We pulled the data to make sure that they were all growing. And then I've met with the teachers and we have these charts that show them which of the kids are not showing growth, and looking just in case, because sometimes you do find as a teacher, you've spent so much time with one group that you forgot to advance your upper level kids. But yeah, we have pulled data for all of them together.
Anyone else? Okay, thank you so much, Leah.
Yep.
Appreciate it. Hi, Harrison, EDS, how are you?
Yes, good evening, everyone. Can we hear me okay?
Yes.
Awesome. I just want to start by saying that I am going to claim the last 15 minutes as professional development time for myself, because Leah, that was awesome. And Leah, doesn't it feel good to talk about academics and learning, because we have not gotten to do enough of that over the last 4 years? I think this is awesome. I have a report that will pale in comparison to Leah's, because I do not have the mastery of the statistics or the graphs that she does, but I have some similar stats to talk about with you all, and I am really fired up to talk with you about them, as you might be able to tell. And I'm going to go ahead and I'll share my screen as well, and I'll slide right down to some of the academic stuff. I've got some other stuff to share besides the academics, but let's start there because that's where Leah left us off. I cannot. Kamala, can I have screen sharing privileges?
It's all yours.
Thank you. And let's see here. All right, so I may need to make things a little bit bigger here as well. I apologize, but let's see. All right, I want to start us down, and this is in your packets, but I want to start us down at a little graph. It says average percentile rank by grade level. There's a couple yellow columns, a couple blue columns, and a couple white columns. Is everyone seeing that okay?
Yep.
Oh, good.
Okay, awesome. So what I did looking at the Aimsweb data, just like Leah did for EVS, is I wanted to look at what I consider value added. So all this data is about percentile rank. None of it is about raw score. And I used averages here. So to start in the left-hand column here, what you're going to see is in the area of literacy, if I averaged all of the kindergarten percentile rankings in the fall, they scored as a cohort in the 30th percentile. So relative to their grade level peers across the nation, they were in the 30th percentile. First grade, 14th percentile. Second grade, 34th percentile, and so on. And then you can see numerous over here. I did the same thing in the winter months as well. So I averaged the percentile ranking for each of these different grade levels, the average. And then this third column, the white column, is the net gain. So this is not about how much students gained over the course of this time. This is how they climbed in the rankings relative to their grade level peers across the country. So if I, for example, look at, let's start with fourth grade, because just like at Kane Elementary School, my fourth grade data looks pretty darn good. My students average in the fourth grade in the 60th percentile relative to their grade level peers across the country. If they're doing their jobs well, and they are doing their jobs well, I would expect to see students hovering right around that same number if they're providing the value added that is sort of commensurate with where we expect teachers to be and kids to be. I would think they would go from 60 to 60. That would show perfectly adequate on-par growth. That's not what we see. We see them going from 60% to 65%, almost 66%, for a 5.5% percentile increase. And if you look across all of these different columns here, and focus particularly on these white columns, you're going to see relatively significant percentile increases in all but one area. And I will come back to that one area. I'm not looking to hide anything here, but I just want to point out, in the third grade, we're looking at an 11.3% increase on average for third graders in literacy and a 14.1% increase. So when we talk about the pandemic and we talk about all the learning loss and we talk about how poorly children have fared, I think we've done pretty darn well. And obviously relative to other elementary schools across the country, we've done really darn well because we pulled further ahead in these rankings. And this is, data that AimsWeb is collecting from tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of third graders and second graders and first graders all across the country. So I'm pretty excited about these numbers. I think the staff is pretty excited about these numbers. We feel pretty good about the work that's being done. The one area where we're struggling, and this is readily apparent here, is this decline in percentile rank in literacy in kindergarten. Now, I want to say very quickly here that I have two very capable, very dedicated kindergarten teachers. I do not think this is a reflection on their performance at all. I think this is a much wider issue that we see at both elementary schools, that we need to be looking at our curriculum, our scope and sequence that Angel's working on, that we're all working on together. I'm meeting with that team more frequently now, and we're talking about how we can start to turn this thing around. Because if you look, our lowest percentile rank is in the fall is our first graders, which are the kids that have just come out of our kindergarten. So clearly this is a problem, a trend that we need to address. And we will, and we know about this trend because we've been collecting all this data and because we're really using that data now. I know last year about this time, I shared with you all a report where I had a bunch of data zeroing in on our first grade students. And at the time, it was a bunch of little red dots. And I talked about the need to look at the data and really focus on literacy. We're doing that. It's taking time. We're doing that. And that's what we see here. The question that was asked of Leah about how kids are growing at different levels, I'm scrolling up here and showing you a different sort of slant on the data. What this shows you is, this is 2 second grade graphs and then 2 third grade graphs, literacy and numeracy respectively. The blue are scores, or the number of kids scoring in certain percentile rankings at each of these grade levels. So I'm going to have to make this a little bit bigger here. I apologize. So if we look at just second grade literacy, in the fall, 10 of our students fell in the bottom 10th percentile as compared with their grade level peers across the country. And we can see that going from the fall to the winter, we have 9 instead of 10. So we've moved one student a little further up here. In the 11th to 25th percentile, you see that number dropping a little bit as well. You see it climbing in the 26th to 74th percentile, climbing still in the 74th to 89th percentile, and climbing here as well in the 90th to 99th percentile. So you want to see more red moving this direction and the blue kind of fading down here as we move from the fall to the winter benchmark data that we have. So again, we see similar trends in numeracy in second grade. I can go down to third grade and look at literacy and see how kids are moving or growing at each of these levels. Again, third grade I think is particularly impressive. We look at this group in the bottom 10th percentile shrinking dramatically from fall to winter, the 11th to 25th percentile dropping as well, and it climbing in the 26th to 74th percentile, 75th to 89th percentile. So we're moving kids that are sort of our lower performers. We're also moving some of our middle of the road performers, and we're even moving some of our high performers. And that was one of the things that when we went down this track with the data, we said was important. We did not want to just be looking at the lowest performing students and putting all of our energy and attention there. It's our job to make sure that every kid who comes to Enfield Village School is benefiting from their time there and is being moved forward at their level and at their rate. And we can see that here with some of this data. I do not have similar data for kindergarten and first grade, and I don't know, to be honest with you, what happened with my fourth grade numeracy data, but AIMSWeb would not let me run that report. So I've included just literacy in fourth grade. We see sort of a middling out here, to be honest, but still numbers dropping at the lowest percentile and moving more towards the middle of the road. Again, I'm pretty pleased with all this data that I'm sharing with you. I was going to show, I included in my packet some just sort of generic reports to kind of show you what students and teachers and families are now getting from the Enfield Village School along with report cards, because there's a lot of really great information. But I won't go into that with as much detail now. I think Leah covered it pretty well and gave you a pretty nice introduction to AimsWeb. I hope to be showing you a lot more of this data as we move forward and we're able to show you the progress our students are making. But I will just very quickly touch on a couple other elements outside academics at EBS. In looking at, let's start here. So when we talk about the pandemic and how that impacted schools and students and staffs, I just want to show these numbers to you. The blue lines represent staff absences, the red, the number of substitutes, and the yellow, the number of unfilled positions. So this is every day in the month of January that we were in school and the first week and a half in February. Again, the blue lines are the number of staff that are absent. 6 staff out in one day, 7 staff out in one day, 8 staff out in one day, 10 staff out in one day. And I can share with you that the staff wanted and was fighting tooth and nail to be in the building. This is not a reflection of anyone taking advantage or not taking care of themselves. This is this exposure, putting this person out, this person testing positive, putting them out, this person's family member, putting them out. And you can see we never had more than 4 subs in the building during this entire 6 to 7 week span here. And you can see the number of unfilled positions. So yes, there was a day, January 31st, when we had 6 unfilled positions with 10 staff out and 2 subs in the building. That meant 2 of the positions did not need to be filled. That likely was an administrative assistant and maybe a school counselor. But there were some really challenging days in here. The staff did a really nice job of rising to this occasion. The paraprofessionals in particular stepping up really into teaching roles during this time with guidance from teachers from outside of the school. But I do worry going forward that this cannot become a norm or a trend. We need to make sure we're focusing on our substitutes and getting substitutes and compensating substitutes in a way they want to come and work for us and continue to work for us. Because though we did this span of time and it worked pretty darn well, it's definitely not sustainable. And it definitely took a toll on morale during this span of time. And I want to make sure that the board is aware of that. I also want to quickly show the board some student behavioral data. I like to go back to these. This has been a focus of mine for 4 years now. It's gotten to be in pretty good shape, but I just want to give some updates. I think I shared a similar graph with you all in my first quarter report, but just to update you, we track what we call intentional physical contact, or when the staff really as a last resort has to physically handle a child. And that's trained staff who have been through what was COM training and is now CPI training. But it kind of shows you in the month of September just how much physical intervention was required for some of our students. These are particular students that are obviously unnamed, but the number of occurrences, the number of times they had to be physically assisted over the course of the month. And you can see that dropping away to the point that in December and January, there really was just 1 student that we were still needing that level of intervention with, and not anywhere near as frequently as we were needing that level of physical intervention. This is testament to the folks who work on our student support center. It is testament to Megan Moore, our contracted BCBA, who's in a couple days a week. It is testament to all the teachers and all the paraprofessionals who are working with students. We still very much are in need of, when we have 6 kids that are requiring this level of intervention in the month of September with this frequency, we are in need of that behavior coach position. And it's one that we've advertised for and one that we've sought to put someone in and not had qualified applicants, frankly. But I want to make sure that we don't lose sight of the fact that though we have gotten by this far without that, there is definite need for that level of support. Megan Moore has been fantastic. If I could get her 5 days a week, I would do it. But the need is definitely there. I'll share quickly as well. We track the number of behavioral referral forms, or anytime a child is written up with a minor or major infraction, we track that information as well. And you can see the data trending across the year. It looks really great until the month of January. So you can see downward trends across kindergarten, which is blue, first grade, which is red, yellow is second grade, green is third, orange is fourth. So it all looks really great. To be honest with you, I chopped this up to staffing numbers. I chopped this up to sort of inconsistencies and having different people in different positions over this course of time, and that being hard on kids. I still think we're doing some really good work with behavior in the building. I still think there's significant need, but I'm pretty happy with the way we're able to get this looking the way we want it to each year now, and it really gets under control better and better with each successive year with some of the different pieces that we put in place. I think I will stop there. I'll stop sharing my screen. And if there are any questions from the board, I'm happy to entertain those.
Anybody have anything for Harrison tonight?
That's excellent use of data as well. I'm really glad to see like the behavioral referrals, because you were concerned about that. We were all concerned about that. Kids coming back to school in the fall, and it's good to see a positive trend. And yeah, no, thank you for all this data. This helps a lot.
You're very welcome.
Well done, Harrison, thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good evening.
Mm-hmm.
Look at Tina's already ready to go. Hi, Tina.
It's like almost bedtime for me. Okay, I really need to know the score of the game. No one.
Yeah, we just got the final score.
Yep.
45-42. Here, Sarge.
They just barely
They just
missed the
missed.
buzzer beater to
Yeah.
tie it.
That's too bad. Half my staff is going to be in tears tomorrow. Great, lovely.
Yes.
Well, they did an awesome job.
I mean, to get this far.
Yep.
That's amazing. It really is. I know April and Julie Moulton, and they were all yes. So I will do my quarterly report. I do need to say it's so nice to when you looked at Indian River School's numbers for COVID, it's so nice to say we had no cases today. It's so nice to say we had one. The spreadsheet of what we've been working on with COVID was 2 pages at one point because we tracked every student out for testing. So it's just so nice to not talk about that and be in such a good place. So for my quarterly report, we have so many great things happening. For the last quarter, we had the band and chorus concert, which was great. All of our athletics. We only have to take, I think, like one COVID break for, I think it was a basketball, but that was like only a week. Or it was almost 2 weeks. But that was the only time we made it through. Our enrollment numbers are about the same. We're still going ahead with professional development, which has been great. Demonstrated success is still working with us. We do not have anything planned for March, but we'll be looking at doing some of the SAS modules as we prepare for the SAS testing coming up in the spring. We're really fortunate. We have some dedicated staff that are really doing more research, tapping into what's out there for free resources from the state for our multi-tiered system of supports, behavior framework, as well as just, our overarching tier 2 supports for students. And Carolyn Christie and another staff member, Heidi Mock, have really been leading the way with that. And Carolyn Christie's really been instrumental of tapping into our community resources. WISE was just there and really seeing what else we can utilize to support our students. Year of the Book is still going strong. That's that massive grant that we're so fortunate to have. Heidi Murphy's coming in tomorrow from New Hampshire Fish and Game to talk about Hike Safe. Kids are getting free books. It's really been Jennifer Hollander. I can't say enough amazing things about the work that she does. She's getting ready to launch a Read Across America campaign, coding activities, just author visits. It's really been, she's a breath of fresh air. She's done some amazing things in our library media center. We've dealt with all the COVID stuff, but I do really want to acknowledge the front office staff. There were times when the phone was ringing off the hook starting at 6:30 in the morning, really parents not knowing what to do. Tina, Shannon, Sarah Boaz was also doing some work supporting the high school, going back and forth. Marissa, all of their work, just, I can't say enough amazing things. They really supported, keeping track of the data and making sure that we were doing everything to keep our school community safe. And between trying to get work for kids that are out, like, are they out on a 10-day isolation? Are they out on 5-day isolation? Like, all of those things, and getting work for kids, and just really amazing stuff that they've done. And I think a lot of times they are sort of in the background of what we do. And today, when we talk about COVID moving out, Sarah Boaz was like so excited today because she dealt with a student that had fallen and stuffed up their knee, and a student that had an earring back stuck in their ear. So she was happy to be a nurse today. She was like, this is what I'm supposed to be doing. So that was really good.
Great.
I can say about my data, so we are not doing winter NEWA. We have rolled out a really good RTI system. So we are using STAR assessments as well as Freckle, which is a tier 2 intervention, and kids go on and they play, you know, where they're at. So their second STAR assessment, which would be for the second quarter for them, that's going to be done this week and next. So the comparative data for those two hasn't been done yet.
Okay. Any questions for Tina?
Thank you.
So thank you, Tina.
I'm so sad about the game. Oh no.
I know. I know. I'm still proud, very proud of them all there.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And I hope you all have a wonderful Tuesday, because if you weren't around my building today, it was a pretty impressive Tuesday.
Yeah, I know there was t-shirts with tutus over at Canaan Elementary.
Oh, that's good. Tutus, I like it.
So
You know what? It's nice to see everybody laugh and just have a good day. So it's great.
That's right. That's right. All right, Tina, keep you pressed up. We'll see you tomorrow.
Oh, I'll be there.
All right. All right, tonight's report for the high school is in your packet. I don't believe we have anyone from the school. They're all gone with the game, so. Congratulations to the 12 students for the Ava Art Gallery. Joey, very good, nice.
Oh, they did the Grand State Challenge.
Mhm.
Yeah, involved in that. That's cool.
Nice. Okay. Well, keep up the good work. All right. Okay, so moving on to new business. We have an MOU edition of the 2 early release days in the 2022 calendar. And we're looking for, Amanda's looking for an approval for that.
I'll make a motion that we approve the memorandum of understanding between the school board and the Regional Education Association regarding additional early release days for professional development.
Second.
Kathleen, thank you. Discussion. These are the 2 days that we discussed. Correct. Workable for everyone, and I think it's okay. Anyone have any questions or comments? Okay, seeing none, all in favor of the motion, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? And that passes. Yes. Okay, now we're looking to approve the calendar for the 2022-2023 school year.
I'll make a motion that we approve the 2022-2023 school calendar as presented in our packet.
Second.
Questions, comments?
I will say, Cookie, remember I pulled this back at the last meeting because the date of graduation was on the 9th and the requirements of the state of graduation versus the last day of school for other students weren't going to work if we had snow days. So we did change that problem, or solve that issue rather, by changing the first week of school to start on August 30th. It was previously going to start on the 29th. We changed it to start on the 30th. Hartford CTC does not have school on Monday, the 29th, so that does not impact the Hartford calendar at all. It also gives our kids a 3-day week, which had been a suggestion from the MVREA. It helps the younger kids be able to acclimate to full school days better than if they jump right into a 4 or a 5-day week. So it would be a 3-day week, and then a 4-day week, and then into a 5-day week.
Okay. And putting graduation on the 16th.
And puts graduation on the 16th.
So if there is a snow day or two,
I got 5
we could
snow
bump
days
it
to
after.
fall.
Yeah, we
Yep,
got plenty of
good.
room. So
Plenty
that's
of
good.
room.
Perfect. Okay, anyone have any questions?
Nope.
Okay, seeing none, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, and abstention, and that passes unanimously. All right, we have several policies, one we are aware of.
That's right. I'll make a motion for second reading and approval. I'll say the letters. Policy EBCA, policy ECAF, policy EEA, policy EEAA, policy EEAB, policy EEAC, policy JICC, policy JICC-R, policy EEAG, policy EEAE, all for second reading and adoption.
Do you have a second?
EEAA
Did you
is
second it, Kathleen?
Yes.
All right, thank you.
Was it EEA?
EEAA,
A? that we
video
had to-
and audio surveillance.
Right, we gotta
Paragraph.
change that.
If we got that from the school board, we could probably, association, we should probably tell them.
I think could everybody just read it one more time, just to make sure that, I can see we're prohibited now that I've read it a couple times. Maybe it's either required or prohibited by law, or permissible by law. I can see
Oh, I
both.
see what you're
Oh.
saying, yeah. Authorizes the
I can see both, so I don't know what the board would like to do there.
Oh, I actually think it could be, that's what it's supposed to be,
I've read it a couple times, so now I'm
yeah.
just pointing that out. I think either would be okay.
Well, I think they're trying to say you can either go either way with that.
Yeah, because if there's some
Yeah.
reason that you cannot release a recording, let's say it contains students' faces or something like that,
Yeah,
that would be prohibited by law
Right.
to release it to the public.
right.
I'm okay, like, keeping it as is prohibited, but asking
Yeah.
our legal if that's what, and we can bring it back next time.
Or the NHSBA, just,
Yeah.
we double check with them.
Mhm.
Yeah, no,
Sure.
I actually see why it means both,
I could think it could go either way.
yeah.
So you wanna just pull that one out of the group and bring it back to the next
Yeah.
meeting? Okay.
All right, then I rescind my motion of second reading for EEA.
Okay. Tim and Kathleen. Okay. Any other comments or discussion on any of the others? All those in favor of the motion, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstention?
I'll make a motion for first reading, policy IB, academic freedom, and policy FAA, annual facility plan.
That's gonna be rescind.
Oh, no, the next one's rescind.
Oh,
Right.
sorry.
Oh, okay, all right, I know, you.
I see it. Okay.
So I'll
Wait a
second
minute.
those two. With the FAC, the one that we're looking to rescind, I think when that came on board, we had adopted that previous to the discussions of building,
Mhm.
and we knew it was going to take quite a few years to be able to put that facilities plan together, and have it within the next year or two of having to look for, putting it for the voters, so. And so this facility plan one is basically from NHIAA, I got that out of my mind. The School Board Association, is that where this one come from?
So FAA is a new policy,
Yeah.
and it comes from the new state mandate that we report on an annual basis any unused school facilities. So that's a requirement to be reported January 1st of each year. So this just requires the district to make a plan basically about how the facilities are being used. And then to uphold that reporting system to the state on an annual basis. I think the board could go either way on FAC. If it would be, I do not really think that FAC is incorporated in FAA. I think it wouldn't hurt for the board to keep FAA and just say it was reviewed on this date. We could just put a review date on it. It just talks about the need to notify the public if there are plans to be renovations or remodels or additions to any of the schools. The NHSBA does not currently have policy FAC, but I think it's, it speaks to transparency of the school district, not trying to hide anything in doing renovations or,
Because the importance of that policy at that time was, we were going to put together the advisory building committee to be able to look at our options and figure out what would be the better way to go. Would we want to purchase land to build something, use the SAU property? So, there was so many different components, and like I said, when we put this together, because it was 2008 when we actually put the first bond out. And I'm not seeing that piece in here. I'm glad that they're keeping up and trying to keep us on our toes about unused facilities. But I don't know if I would want to rescind that. I would probably rather put it up for review.
Yeah, we can just put it reviewed by the board on today's date. That would be fine.
Because I think the specifics of that for Mascoma, and this is an overall generalized policy for FAA, so.
Yeah, no, I'm fine, not rescinding that,
I wonder if with FAC, if you want, and I think it's fine to keep it, just it's very innocuous, it's there if you need it, kind of thing. But the last paragraph where it says the board may utilize an advisory building committee to study the needs for expansion and remodeling. Would you be, since this is a helpful thing to keep us, who knows what's gonna come up in the future kind of thing. If you said the board may utilize an advisory committee, just get rid of the word building. And then you have some more wiggle room in terms of whatever it is you're looking to expand.
That's a good idea. I like, because it could just be an advisory committee on facilities in general.
Right.
Yeah. And not necessarily stuck to building.
Right.
Like you're gonna build, or, I don't know.
It could be a,
Parking lot.
parking lot,
Yeah.
it could be outside, it could be outdoor teaching, or, So that just gives you more wiggle room.
So just take the word building out.
Yeah.
Yes.
Do we have to bring this back for the first reading, or can we just state it?
I
and
think
then
just,
rescind?
we'll just mark it as reviewed on today's date, and we'll remove the word building, and I think that will be fine.
Okay. Okay, thank you. I just think it's important to have.
Policy FAA is, like you said, from a new state law. The reason being is that charter schools
Right.
now have the right to use any public school building's unused facilities. So, or, they have first dibs, I guess. And so this is allowing them to to count everything in an inventory, what's on hand. So that's what this is for. And then the other one, IB Academic Freedom, that's the one that's caught a lot of headlines and stuff. And I understand that this is a state law. Me personally, I think this is buoy, and so I'm not gonna vote for it, but I understand that state law.
So we do already have IB
I know,
in the policy, just so you know, Tim.
I know.
But why does it say category optional if it's state law? That's what confused me a little bit.
Because then it's in our policies, and we can just pull it out as our policy
No,
instead
but
of.
a lot of them say from so this is not from NHSBA?
Yes, this update is.
Right.
And the change is the history of the revisions. It's been revised in September 2021
Right.
to include the definition of academic freedom and provide provisions relative to RSA 193-40, the prohibition on teaching discrimination, enacted in 2021, and more directly connect the policy to sample policies about staff political activities and speech, and the policy over controversial speakers and programs.
So why do they say it's optional?
Because it's not probably one of those required by law, even though it does reference an RSA.
Probably because it doesn't require you to have a policy. Because there's parts of the law that require you to have a policy on file,
Okay.
and so those would be required by law. This is just a policy that reflects the law. So like if there was a dispute, it would go to the law anyway, but I think this comes out because the law does not say we have to have a policy, but it's probably smart practice to have it. Does that make
Yeah,
sense?
no, it does make sense. It's just, this is just really, I don't know.
So we currently have policy IB.
Is it very much different? It must be.
It was from 2016.
Yeah.
So, I mean, the board could choose to rescind policy IB from your docket totally if you wanted to do that.
Well, I mean, I'm wondering what's, there's also this has been a very, contentious policy. And I'm concerned about two things. Well, obviously, we need to have whatever support's there for the teachers and for the district. And I don't know if is this policy doing that? That's my question. Is it, do I like it? No. But, is
bring it
it
back if you-
providing a safety net?
Yeah.
Is my question.
I would say hope that it is quite different than the current not quite different,
Yeah.
but it is different than the policy that we have. And I think, yeah, if you want to bring it back, we do currently have it, and this is the update of it. So I think you have to either look at rescinding it or updating, one of the two.
If we bring it back, we would probably have more board members with us, so.
Yeah, we can table this.
Yeah.
Yeah, then
I think-
what?
I think too that the category being optional may be there just because it isn't recommended by the state. It's optional. They're leaving it open because again, they don't want to be, defining.
Well, this is NHSBA's, what they're saying.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
They're saying it's optional rather than recommended.
right.
Oh,
is
yeah,
what they-
yeah, because they have recommended, that's right, as well.
Right,
Yeah.
and they're just leaving it open.
Right.
And I think what we need to do is decide whether we're going to amend or, we can't have two policies, IB.
Right.
So we have to bring it back, bring it back.
So, all right, I'll withdraw my motion on that.
Okay.
So we just have the FAA policy on the floor. First read.
All right, all in favor of the motion of the annual facility plan, FAA, as presented for first reading, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? And abstentions. So now we have FAC, and Amanda, you're just gonna mark that as reviewed, and that will just get updated in the book.
All right.
Okay. Agenda items for the next meeting?
Organizational meeting. So that's all we're gonna do, I think, right? Unless we have something that you want to squeeze in, but the intent was this to just be an organizational meeting. So we just get it done.
Yes, that's,
Otherwise, that last meeting in March is a doozy.
yes. Okay,
We'll have an EIC update.
that is
Whenever
the only
we-
meeting we have in March, correct?
No, we have 2 in March.
Oh, we do have the first, oh,
Yeah, we have an organizational meeting.
In the weird week, on the 15th?
it was right after the vote, correct?
Yes, we're voting on the 8th.
Yes.
And then we're meeting in an odd week to organize, and then
Yes.
we're back on our regular schedule on the,
Okay,
on the 4th Tuesday.
so the 15th and the 22nd.
Yeah, we're doing, yeah.
Okay, back-to-back weeks, okay.
Yeah.
Hold on, let me just double check. I felt like it was. Come on, calendar, work with me.
I know.
Give me the March. Yeah, the 15th.
Okay,
The 15th and the 22nd.
so then just bring those other policies back on the 22nd.
Yeah, we'll do the policy work on the 22nd.
All right. Just trying to organize and get all that situated. It's always an overload when we always got more to do.
Let's just organize.
Okay. Gotcha. All right, public comment.
One quick one. I'm wondering if one of the answers to the literacy in kindergarten is in looking at the census. I think we had 30 fewer preschool kids last year, which is 30 fewer than we normally have, and I'm wondering if those kids came in
Right.
less prepared than normally.
Oh, you mean like they came into kindergarten without any?
Exactly,
I got
no
you, I got you,
preschool. Because of COVID, the preschool was half as many as usual.
yeah. That's a good point.
Yeah, they didn't even have it the first half of the year.
That's
Right.
And then many parents didn't send their kids because of masks and COVID.
Yeah.
They were worried, so they didn't do it.
Yeah,
So it may be an anomaly,
yeah.
because we're back to those numbers this year, the higher numbers.
Good point, Ben. Thank you. Dr. Buffet, any last comments?
No, I think you,
Okay,
slow and steady.
all right. So the March 22nd meeting is when we'll revisit the masks, okay? All right, personnel resignations, nominations. What do we have?
I do not have any tonight.
Okay, and do we have any non-public?
I do for the purposes of hiring.
Okay,
Make a motion to go into non-public with RSA 91-A, colon 312, subset B. Hiring.
Second.
thank you, Kathleen. Hope Stragnow. Yes. Kathleen Stacy.
Yes.
Tim Josephson.
Yes.
And Cookie Hebert, yes, we are in non-public.
Yeah, I did. I emailed that.
Yeah, 7:50.
Thanks.
I was glad to see all those updates on that sign down there.
Yes.
It was nice. And they have it say like, congrats boys and girls basketball, good playoff.